You're listening
to the CD Baby DIY
Musician
Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to episode number 134 of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. My name is Kevin Bruner, your host for the show. And first off, I just want to say it's been great getting all the emails and comments and feedback about the last episode we had, which was the Roundtable Edition, where we discussed the recent comments by the head of iTunes, where he said, music is dead. And it was great getting your opinions and feedback and just thoughts on someone like iTunes saying that music is dead. If you'd like to weigh in on any of our episodes, we'd encourage you to do so. There's a couple great ways to do that. First off, the comment section for each episode at cdbabypodcast.com, or you can just email us, podcast@cdbabypodcast.com, and we might actually read your email on the air. Or you can call our listener line at 360-524-2209. We love getting phone messages as well, and we'll drop those into the show occasionally. So if you've got something that you want to contribute to the show, that's the way to do it, and we encourage you to do so. Now, on to today's episode. Today you're going to hear my interview with Shannon Curtis. Shannon Curtis is an independent artist turned house concert expert. She got tired of the typical grind playing clubs and tried to do something different with her touring and just reach out to her fans and play shows specifically for them at their homes. Her approach is a little different than what we've talked about in the past with house concerts, and she got so good at it that she decided to turn all of her experience into a book. Shannon has a brand new book called No Booker, No Bouncer, No Bartender, How I Made $25,000 on a 2-month house concert tour and How You Can Too. She basically took all the information, really detailed stuff about how she approaches booking a tour with house concerts. And this summer she's embarking on another house concert tour to support the release of her new album. And I expect it will be just as successful as her past tours. Oh, I should also mention that she has a ton of photos on her website at shannoncurtis.net. If you're a visual person like me, you'll want to check that out. Everything from the different setups at the house concerts, some of the gear, it really helps you just visualize what you can do with the house concert model. Lastly, be sure to stick around to the end of the episode where you're going to hear a track off of Shannon's new album that she's releasing this summer called Metaforma, and the track is called I Am With You. So stick around after the interview, and with all that being said, let's get to my interview with Shannon Curtis. All right, well, joining me is Shannon Curtis. Shannon, how are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Good. Great to finally get a chance to interview you. You've been in the CD Baby family for years.
Yeah.
And you go way back to when I was doing some sync licensing for CD Baby. I think that was 2008.
I think you're right.
And so you've been doing some cool things since then. And so you have a new book that you're kind of promoting, I should say, and you have a new album coming up.
Yep.
But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself as an artist, and then we can talk about the book and everything you've been up to.
That sounds great. So yeah, I've been doing solo stuff since about 2007, and was in a band prior to that. But this current iteration of my music career started in 2007, and I make what I call down-tempo dream pop music. It's kind of like Sarah McLachlan meets Massive Attack, you might say.
I like that.
Right on. But started out doing, the touring that they tell you you're supposed to do to build a fan base. You make the rounds and you play the coffee houses and the clubs and you wash, rinse, repeat and try to, build a fan base. And I spent many years doing that. Also doing, college shows. I've done a lot of shows on the college circuit, and I kind of used those to sort of tour support myself, really, like to pay for the rest of my touring. And did that for a number of years, and I would see some growth, but it wasn't very fast growth. It was hard work. I was not seeing like the kind of upward trajectory that I had hoped in the traditional touring model. And purely by accident, a couple years ago, a fan of mine in San Diego sent me a Facebook message, and she's like, "Hey, you haven't played in San Diego in a while. You should come play here. You could play in my living room. We could take donations. It would be fun." I was like, okay. I figured at least I would make gas money, and sure, this could be fun. So, and I live in Los Angeles, so no big deal. I drove down to San Diego, and I had this total light bulb moment at this show where there was this living room full of people. It was dead quiet. You could hear a pin drop. These people were hanging on every word that I had to share with them that night. It was so much fun. It was the most fun show I had performed in a very, very, very long time, because there was just this utter connectedness, in the room. And to our great surprise, we walked away with way more than gas money that night. And so this was the big light bulb, like, oh, this was fun. And I made a lot of money. So that was kind of the birth of this whole house concert idea. And I had, like I said, been doing that whole club touring route for a while. And I had really decided to really dedicate myself. For 5 months, I was going to do 5 West Coast cities once a month for 5 months in a row. So Seattle, Portland, San Francisco, LA, and Sacramento, right? And I scheduled all these club shows, and I'm like, well, maybe we could do some filler dates as house concerts.
Mm-hmm.
That could be a way to keep ourselves busy on the road and not be wasting money. And so we did. We booked filler date house concerts with fans of mine, that hosted the shows in their living rooms. And over the course of 5 months, on every single measurable metric, the house concerts were outperforming the club shows. And so that was really the testing ground for this model that we developed and then put into this book, which I'm sure we're going to talk more about. But yeah.
Yeah. The book's called No Booker, No Bouncer, No Bartender, How I Made $25K on a 2-month house concert tour. So you took all these things that you were learning with house concerts and put it into a book so anyone could repeat it.
Exactly.
So I'm sure there's a lot of folks that are listening that've heard about house concerts, maybe don't understand exactly what we're talking about, or some folks that have heard about us, because we've talked about it. It's been years, but we've had someone on the podcast before that had mentioned house concerts. There's probably some differences between what people are doing and what ideas are being tried. And so why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of what you did?
Sure. So I had heard of house concerts before, and there's a very well-established tradition of house concerts in this country. And I think you mostly see it in the folk and Americana traditions. And there's a very well-established house concert venue circuit in the United States, which you may or may not have heard of, which are wonderful things. And I think it's great that they're out there. But in a lot of ways, that house concert venue circuit can bring a lot of the same problems that you might have in the traditional touring circuit, in that there is a gatekeeper. There's hundreds of people emailing that house concert host saying, "Hey, can I play at your house concert venue?" And then you've got to convince them to let you come play and play for their audience and whatnot. But the way that we started doing it accidentally with this fan in San Diego was they were fan powered. So essentially we're partnering with people who follow my music, people who like me as a person, who, we've done these at my mom's house, at my dad's house, a couple of aunts and uncles, but people who are either fans or they're just fans of me as a person, fans of my music. And it's those people who are becoming sort of the little promoters, because the guests at the house concert are their friends, their social groups. And so instead of trying to get a piece of the music fan marketplace in any given city, we're creating new little markets in every place that we're going by using the partnership with my fans to put on the shows.
So when you're talking about house concerts, I'm sure lots of people are visualizing different scenarios.
Sure.
What kind of situation? Houses? Is it someone's living room with a couch and 3 people? Is it
Right.
someone's mansion with 1,000 people? Or what are we dealing with here?
That's true. So it kind of runs the gamut, actually. And I've done shows in mansions for a couple hundred people, and I've done shows in rundown garages for 4 people, but and I've done so many of these that we've now sort of, and that's kind of why we read the book, is sort of to put together all of the details that we've learned that make a successful house concert. So yes, a house concert at its core is, hey, let's get together in someone's living room and one of us will play music and hey, concert. But to do it well, there are some things. So our shows take place in all different kinds of homes, backyards, living rooms, apartments. We've done them in other alternative spaces like someone's photo studio or, that kind of thing. But essentially it's an alternative venue, most times a home where people are gathered and you perform a show for them in this space. And we found some things, that we do, that we make sure to do to sort of maximize the outcome of, that can create a good house concert. So hopefully you have more than 3 people there. In our case, the way, I will confirm a show with a fan if they can tell me that they'll have a minimum number of 20 adults there. Because for me, I've found that that's sort of a tipping point at which it feels like an event. It feels like something special. It's not like 8 awkward people in one room. Like, what are we doing here? Yeah. It feels like a cool thing. Also, because we do all the shows by open donations, that seems to be the number at which the collective compensation starts to make sense for me as a performer. Like, once 20 people are giving to the donation, vessel at the end of the night, that starts to make sense in terms of, the money that you can make. So
interesting. So a lot of with these shows, you're not going in with a set guarantee.
Nope, not. Occasionally, I'll have a host that doesn't want to do the donation route. They want to just treat their friends to a special concert in their home, in which case we've worked out a guarantee structure that, that works for us. But the vast majority of the shows that I do are just on open donation, which is, I think, one of the things that has made it really successful is because it's accessible to just about anybody. I mean, like, not all of my fans have deep pockets, it's not like they're all lawyers and doctors and stuff. So to be able to do this on a mass scale with many, many people, you need to make it as accessible as possible. So really the 2 basic requirements for a host of one of my shows is that they have a space for us to gather, and that space can be kind of there's a lot of different options for that. And that they'll have a minimum number of 20 adult friends joining us at the event. So there's not a cash like threshold, upfront cash threshold they have to get over. Like, that can scare people away. But if they're like, oh yeah, I could get 20 people to come see Shannon perform in my living room and that would be really cool, then just about anyone can do that, and then you can reproduce it because it's accessible for a lot of people. So
the one thing that comes to my mind is the idea of, because I don't think you mentioned how many shows you played on the one tour that inspired the book. How many shows did you play?
That was 50 shows.
50, and then you've got another tour coming up where you're playing 60.
Yeah,
that seems like the one thing that pops into mind is that you're dealing with a lot of people who've never planned or booked a show before. True. That seems like a lot of work on your end. How do you manage that relationship and help walk those folks through that so it's not a disaster?
I will tell you about that, and it is a lot of work, but honestly, the amount of time that I spend booking a house concert tour is way less time than the amount of time I have spent booking club tours in the past. Because, club tour, you're emailing a promoter 5 times before they ever even return your first email, and trying to get the time slot you want and like the communication. It's just, that's a lot of work. I mean, if you've done it, I'm sure you've done it.
Yes.
You know how much work that is. The big difference when you're working with people who are your fans who are hosting your shows is that they're totally excited about this. So that when you send them an email saying, hey, what do you think about this date? Like 5 minutes later, they're emailing you back. Yeah, I'm so excited. So like in terms of the workload, I honestly feel like it's a lot less work in some ways, but it is still work, and I do a lot of helping my hosts to help to plan successful events. And so, like, I do have a 7-page long PDF that I send each of our hosts with pretty pictures and stuff too, so it's not just dry reading. There will be a test at the end of this, but like it outlines, here are some qualities of a good house concert. Here's how we're going to achieve a successful event. And the thing is, these are people who support your music. These are people who support what I'm doing. They want it to be a successful night. And they, generally speaking, know that they don't know what they're doing and are open to that help. Mm-hmm. So we've just devised a sort of a step-by-step. And again, that's kind of a lot of the details that the book goes into, these very, very detailed step-by-step suggestions for making the most possible successful night. And we walk through those things with the host, things like the timing of the event, like I found that it's really important to have like an hour's worth of time from when guests show up to when the show starts, because that's a great amount of time for people to get comfortable, but not so comfortable that it becomes unfocused and then they're not sure why they're there, you know, or it's before they've had that third drink that they're like not paying attention anymore, you know, things like that.
You gotta hate those rowdy house concerts where things get out of hand.
Yeah, you know, that's funny because actually some people will be like, oh yeah, we'd love to host you for a house party. And I'm like, no, this is a house concert. Yeah. And here's why. Like, you know, there's another thing that we make sure that we do for each of the events to make sure that they're successful is that we want everybody to be able to have a seat. You know, that's the benefit of a house concert is that you have the opportunity to make really deep connections with people, you know, and you can do that most effectively when you can optimize your environment to make that happen. So when people are actually paying attention, you know, you're not in a club, you're not dealing with the guy blending margaritas, you know, and in your most sensitive moment of your set, you know, so you can kind of, you know, do things like making sure everyone is seated because then they're going to pay attention to what you're doing, you know, and it doesn't devolve into a house party, but it's a concert. You know? That's
a good point. Do you have any house concerts where you showed up and you're like, oh no, or tell us about those.
So you know what? It's gonna happen, and it's happened to me. Like last summer, we definitely had a show where we showed up, and I first thought we were actually at the wrong place. I'm like, surely we've gotten the wrong address. But I called the host, and he's like, oh no, I'm here. I'll come right down. I'm like, oh, we are at the right place. Great. And it was a dingy garage with 4 people, you know. And even though I had done all of the prep, you know, I learned a lot from that experience actually, and improved upon my preparation for this year's concert tour, you know, as a result of that. But yes, it has happened. And so what I did that night and what I do when those kinds of things happen is I behave like the professional that I am, and I do the show just like I would be playing for a group of 50 people and bring my A game and, you know, and do it right, because that's what I do. Right. But the thing about that is that even, you know, I've had some shows where, they're not the best shows maybe, but you never know who's in your audience. And I've had some of those where, you know, there's somebody in the audience who hosts a house concert the next year and it's $1,000 night. Yeah. You know what I mean? You just never know. So you always act like the professional that you are and bring your A game, you know?
Even in a dingy garage, which half the clubs in America are dingy garages anyway. So it doesn't
lots
matter.
Of experience with that.
What you talked about, you just mentioned having $1,000 night. Is there any typical kind of average night that you tend to shoot for in order to plan out the tour to make it make sense? Because I'm assuming that you're not the house concert host isn't providing room and board for you.
Sometimes they do. Sometimes they do. Yeah. In fact,
how do you determine that when you're talking to them? Because, you know, if you show up to that dingy garage and they're
it's true. Well, you know, I think I've gotten better at figuring out what the situation's going to be in advance. You know, that obviously was a mistake on my part last year. I didn't read that situation correctly. Yeah. You know, but for the most part, you can kind of tell who you're dealing with, and, you know, oh, we've got a spare bedroom that, you know, my sister used to live in, but now she's at college and it's, you know, it's yours. You know, like you can kind of get a sense. But, you know, another thing is that we've done this now for enough years that a lot of people will have us return to their house. Like it's become like an annual event at some people's homes, and we've become great friends with these people. It's not just that they're fans of my music anymore, but they're our friends and like deeply part of our community, which is amazing. And so we look forward to going, and they would be hurt if we didn't stay in the spare bedroom, you know? So like that has kind of developed over time. But you were asking about like an average, you know, take in a night. Last summer, we averaged $500 a night.
Wow.
Between donations and merch sales. And I think that was pretty good for independent touring, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's really good.
And that range is like on the high end, we had like a 1,200 plus night one night last year. And I think our low was in the 300s, you know, so there's a range in between there.
So on these tours, are you providing the sound system, or are they supplying that for you?
No. They don't have sound systems. You have to bring you got to bring your own. Yeah, these are not people who host house concerts, right?
Yeah.
These are just regular folks who are fans of my music. And so, yes, we bring all the infrastructure. But actually, one of the things that we did in the book, and it's actually available on my website as well, just for anyone to go and read, is a detailed description of the equipment that we use as a PA, which is essentially a PA that fits in a backpack. So we travel in a Volkswagen Jetta with my 88 key keyboard in a flight case, our luggage, all of the merch and backstock, and a PA in a Jetta. So we bring a little PA that's enough to power, it can power a living room. It can power a backyard. We've done a show for a couple hundred people in a backyard. No problem with this little PA.
You were talking to me earlier today when we were talking about preparing for this interview that why this is such a powerful model with connecting with fans. Tell us about your thoughts on that.
Yeah. So I didn't, it's not like I theorized about all this before, starting it, but these are things that I've learned in the course of doing over 150 house concerts over the last couple of years. And I think that one of the things that makes this model so powerful is that I'm engaging in partnership with my fans to create really unique and awesome experiences for them and their community of people. And it's just a highly connective environment. I mean, you've been to a show, you've been to plenty of shows where even if a friend drug you there, you're like, oh, you got to check this band, they're a great band. And you go to the show and you're like, oh yeah, they were a great band. And then you forget the name of the band 3 days later because probably you were there having fun with your friends and it was a club and you were having a couple of drinks. There's lots of reasons to have a good time and then forget. But how often have you gone to your friend's living room and sat on their couch and then laughed and cried over the course of an hour because this artist was there, performing for you and putting on this great show that you had you had a moment, you shared something deeper and more connective than I think a traditional club show can offer. And what we've found is that partnership, that connectivity, that intimacy has translated into on an artist fulfillment sort of level. I mean, I can't tell you, I love performing house concerts. It's so incredibly rewarding as a performer, just on the ooey gooey side of how it feels, Then in terms of the making new fans, I mean, when you can bring an experience like that to a living room full of people, they're with you. You can convert an entire room full of people in 1 hour to be fans, and there's a really high percentage of that. And then in terms of the financial side, you bring that kind of experience and people will support that experience with the donations they give, with merch. We sell so much merch. Yeah. Merch was 45% of our income on last summer's tour. Wow. But they've had this experience. They want to take a piece of you home with them, to a much greater degree, I think, than any of the other kind of touring I've ever done.
For an artist who's wanting to try something like this, how do you recommend them first starting that conversation with their fans? Because it could, I'm sure you see it online as well. Artists, God bless them, aren't the best at telling people stuff. They're just buy my music and just kind of feel like people are, why are you shouting at me to buy your music? Totally. But it just, how do you approach that in a way that, your fans take you seriously and kind of start that dialogue?
It's a really good question. And, the first time that we decided to do a whole tour of house concerts, it was kind of a crazy idea. And the way that I approached it with my fans, I sent out a newsletter to my mailing list. And then I blasted it out on social media too. I'm like, okay, I have this crazy idea, but I'm going to need your help to make it happen. Here's my idea. I want to do a house concert tour, but in order for this to happen, I'm going to need people to volunteer as hosts. Here are the two very little basic minimum requirements: a space to gather and 20 people to come. Who'd like to join me on this adventure? And I think that the way of approaching it as I want to it's an invitation. It's not another ask. It's not another please buy this, please do that, please like this, please. It's, hey, you want to do something really cool with me? or I have this crazy idea. Do you think you can help me make this happen? And it's this idea of partnership. It's this idea of engaging them to be a part of something with you, because there's just as much in it for them as there is for you in some ways. You know, they're the ones who have this cool experience of one of their favorite artists coming and playing in their living room, and they get to be the one that says, hey, all my friends, check out who I got, you know? It's neat. It's a really cool thing to do.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's cool that you put all this down in a book, because the interesting thing that I find when artists find other ways where, you know, like writing a book or telling about their experiences, how it kind of can get a broader reach for their music as well.
Right.
So tell us about, you know, the books hasn't been out that long, but you've already seen some success from it.
Oh, totally.
And it's kind of cool because it's opening up more conversations and bringing you and your music to a different level of people that didn't know about you before.
That's true. That's true. I've had conversations with people literally from all over the world as a result of this book. And yes, some of them listen to my music, and that's great. But I don't necessarily need for those people to become fans of my music. I mean, that's a great side benefit, I guess. You know, the house concert model is earning me lots of new fans all the time. So like we've got that working. But in terms of like talking about the book, like I've had so many great conversations with people literally from all over the world who have been so excited about this idea, because so many of us bang our head against the wall trying to figure out, we want to make more money and we want to make more fans. And how the heck do we do that? Yeah. And I just really feel like this is a method that an independent artist can take control of that, where we feel very powerless a lot of the time to you know, achieve those goals in our careers. But I've heard from people who have told me, oh my gosh, this could be career changing. Thank you so much. But the cool thing about it is that like I'm happy to share the information, because it's not like anyone's going to eat my lunch. You know, there's infinite possibilities out there. There are 7 billion people on this planet, you know, many of to whom music is very, very important. It's not as though me telling you my house concert secrets is going to diminish my success in any way. There's no competition here, you know, where there is a lot of competition in a lot of other parts of our industry. We become very distrustful of one another, you know. But this is a case, I believe, of one candle lighting another, not diminishing the flame of the first, you know. And I think it's exciting, because I think it can be really empowering to a lot of artists to own their own success.
So do you find yourself thinking, maybe I should book a club tour? I've done the house concerts. Should I go back to trying to play some of the clubs? Do you find yourself thinking that at all? Or?
Not at all.
Really?
Not at all. In fact, so I did one club tour last summer for a CD release show in Sacramento, California, where I have a concentrated fan base, because I wanted to do a CD release show, and not everybody hosts a house concert. So I'm like, well, we'll do a club show. And it was a great show, and I'm glad I did it. But this year we're like, okay, we're putting out a new album. Let's make the CD release show a house concert. Why not? Because I have no interest in going back into a club. I'm so completely sold out for this idea that I have no interest whatsoever in looking back. In fact, what I am really interested in actually is figuring out how to grow this model into you know, in new ways. Like, how can I bring even more of a wow experience to people's living rooms and backyards? Like, how can I innovate in this space and with this idea? You know, there are a lot of possibilities.
Well, cool. Do you have any final words of advice for an artist that would like to get into house concerts? I know that the club scene is a tough scene as an artist to break from. It sucks. Yep. We all know it sucks.
Totally.
But at the same time, you feel like this is what I'm supposed to do, and we're just supposed to hate our lives and be miserable.
You know what? If you feel like you need to be playing in clubs, you should definitely keep doing that. Like, I'm not here to say you should stop playing in clubs. Yeah. I'm just here to say there's this other alternative out there that really, I mean, anytime you want to get going on this, it's in your power to do that. You don't have to wait around for anyone to open the door for you. You know, maybe all you really need is a person to open the front door of their house to you. Yeah. And you're on your way. Like, this is something that you can do starting 5 minutes from right now. Yeah. If you want.
Well, I love it because, like you mentioned at the beginning of the interview, talking about gatekeepers. so many, especially artists starting out, who could be super talented, have an amazing album, but hasn't really been playing live that often. And it probably happens more now than ever, now that people can make such great records at home.
Right.
It just seems like it's next to impossible to get anyone serious, like, to book a show. They're like, no, until you go play the other club down the street and pack it out, then we'll talk. And you're like, but I've got people that can that support me, that could start me on this journey now and leave all that crap behind.
Well,
so.
yeah. Or, if it still is your goal to play that club, maybe you incubate your audience in that city via house concerts first, and then say, look, I just played 5 house concerts in this town for 20 people each. Now can I play your club?
Yeah.
Maybe that's a way to go. I mean, I'm not going to do that, but if that's what you're interested in doing, you should do that.
Yeah. Well, again, the name of the book is No Booker, No Bouncer, No Bartender, How I Made $25K on a 2-month house concert tour. Oh, and I think at the beginning I forgot to mention and How You Can Too.
And How You Can Too.
I think the title would have been longer, but you ran out of room on the cover, so... but no, it's great info in there, and even if it's just something you're curious about, you should pick it up and read through it. I'm always happy when artists. I mean, that's the reason why I started this podcast, because I'm just a curious person myself, and I'm always just interested when artists really write down their experience and how they went about something in great detail. So if you want the details, not just the fluff, her book has it. So
that's right.
Well, thank you, Shannon.
Thanks, Kevin.
And we'll be watching your next tour and see how it goes.
Right on.
Well, that's going to do it for this edition of the podcast. Again, Shannon's book is called No Booker, No Bouncer, No Bartender, How I Made $25,000 on a 2-month house concert tour, and How You Can Too. You can get that at Amazon, and if you want to find out more information about it, check it out at Shannon's website, shannoncurtis.net. Well, if you've got something you'd like to say or weigh in on, or if you've played some house concerts and want to share your experience, I encourage you to do so. Check out the comment section for this episode of the podcast, or email us, podcast@cdbabypodcast.com, or you can call our listener line at 360-524-2209. Well, now we're going to end the show with a song off of Shannon's new album. The song is called I Am With You, and the album name is Metaforma. Check it out.
Opposite sides of a room, standing off in a stare. Even if I found the words, could you comprehend them? It's you, I know your face, but there is a stranger in the place of the one who knows my heart best. Who never guessed that it would be this hard. We always say it's you and me against the odds. I feel gaining an edge. Best promises I put to the test. Am I with you? Am I with you? Who is this monster with bitter words spat from her lips? You're not the enemy. How did I let it get to this? It's you, the same one I picked, 'cause you understood like no one else did. Forgive me as I forget. Who never guessed that it would be this hard. We always say it's you and me against the odds. Too far out on a ledge, reach for my hand. That's
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.